Okay, let's get into this. We're diving deep into a story today that's, well, it's incredibly chilling,
Mhm.
and it just sticks with you. You've sent over a whole load of source material, articles, reports, some research, all on this one really perplexing event.
Yeah, and what your material lays out, it starts pretty straightforwardly, doesn't it? We're talking February 1959, Soviet Russia, the Ural Mountains remote, frozen, and this group, 9 hikers, experienced folks, setting off on an expedition.
Exactly. Should have been tough, but doable for them. And the sources, they give us a good picture of the group. Igor Dyatlov, he was the leader, just 23, an engineering student.
Right, and the others mostly university students, too. Skilled mountaineers. The material points out they were certified for category 3rd treks. That's the most difficult category.
Definitely not amateurs wandering off unprepared.
Not at all. And the documents you provided show they were meticulous. They kept diaries, took photographs, followed all the protocols. They seemed totally prepared for the conditions.
Their goal was a Torton Mountain, way out there in the Urals.
Mm-hmm. But the sources show that somewhere around February 1st, well, something went drastically wrong.
And that brings us to the search party, right?
Yeah.
They were launched when the group didn't check in, didn't return.
Yeah, and the discovery they made on February 26th, that's where this stops being just a missing persons case and becomes, well, a profound mystery, according to your sources. They found the tent.
But the state it was in
Yeah.
just immediately didn't make sense.
No, the sources emphasize this. The tent was bizarrely slashed open, cut
And crucial.
from the inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
That detail changes everything. No signs of a struggle inside the tent itself.
Which suggests they weren't attacked in the tent. Something made them flee. Panic, maybe?
It certainly looks that way. A panic driving them out into the, brutal, freezing night.
And how they fled is just another baffling layer in these reports.
Mm.
Barefoot. Some just in their underwear. Leaving behind coats, boots, supplies, and that kind of cold.
It doesn't seem rational, does it? It feels like a desperate, maybe even terrified escape, not a planned retreat.
Then the recovery of the bodies. Over the next weeks, even months. That just piled on the questions.
Absolutely. They were scattered, found in different locations across the snow.
The first 2 were near the tree line, edge of the forest, basically just in their underwear.
Right, and then 3 more were found between the tent and those trees. The reports described their positions as if they were maybe trying to crawl back to the camp.
Oh, wow. And then the last 4.
Yeah.
Found months later, right, buried under the snow.
Yes, discovered in May. And this is where the accounts, the sources you sent, become really disturbing because of the injuries.
Yeah, this is a key point the sources keep coming back to. What did they find?
Well, one victim had a crushed skull, massive trauma. 2 others had broken ribs, like significant chest injuries.
And one woman, this is particularly grim, was missing her tongue and eyes.
Horrific injuries. But here's the absolute core of the mystery, the thing your material points out again and again.
Despite this awful internal damage injuries suggesting, immense force.
There were no significant external wounds. No cuts, no bruises you'd expect from, say, a fall or being hit hard or even a fight.
It was as if the force was internal or just invisible. That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. That combination, severe internal trauma, but almost nothing externally, that's why the first official explanation didn't sit right with many people.
Which was an avalanche.
Yeah, the initial investigators concluded it was an avalanche, but the sources note this was disputed almost immediately.
Because, like the reports detail, the slope itself wasn't that steep, was it? Not typically avalanche-prone in that specific spot.
Right, and the tent, while damaged, was still partially upright. Not completely buried or swept away as you might expect in a powerful avalanche. The snow patterns around it didn't really fit either.
So if the evidence on the ground didn't quite scream avalanche, that's when other ideas started creeping in. The whispers, as some sources call them.
Precisely. People started looking for other explanations to account for that panic flight and those really, really strange injuries.
And your sources cover a few possibilities, some more grounded than others. What about military stuff?
That's one theory. There were reports, documented in some sources, of secret weapons testing in the wider region around that time. And then there's that detail.
Oh, radiation.
Yes, traces of radiation found on some of the victims' clothing. It raises the question, were they accidentally exposed to something? It's unsettling.
Definitely. What else comes up in the theories?
Well, another idea that some analyses explore is infrasound. It's like very low-frequency sound waves.
Now we can't hear.
Right. And the theory goes, maybe a rare weather event, wind interacting with the mountain terrain just right, could create infrasound. And the sound, potentially, could cause intense panic, disorientation, maybe even physical effects like nausea.
Okay, so that could maybe explain why they fled the tent in such a state.
Possibly. It could explain the irrational behavior, the flight, but
But the injuries. How does infrasound crush a skull or break ribs without leaving a mark?
exactly. That's the big sticking point with the infrasound theory, according to the sources. It might explain the escape, but not the specific physical trauma.
So where does that leave us? The more speculative stuff.
Yeah, and you see this mentioned too. Things fueled by, for instance, witness accounts. Some people reported seeing strange lights, like orange spheres, in the sky over the Urals around the night of the incident.
Okay, strange lights. That definitely opens the door to, well, more unconventional theories.
It does. UFOs get mentioned, even cryptozoological explanations like a Yeti attack, though there were no animal tracks found. And of course, government cover-up theories that something happened that they didn't want known.
So years go by, decades even, and the mystery just lingers. But didn't they reopen the case recently?
They did. The material notes that in 2019, Russian authorities took another look, a formal investigation.
And their conclusion?
Surprisingly, perhaps, they landed back on avalanche.
Avalanche again, after all the initial skepticism.
Yes. But, as your sources quickly point out, this conclusion faced immediate criticism all over again.
Because it still doesn't really explain everything.
Critics argue it doesn't. It struggles to account for the tent being cut from the inside, why they ran out barely dressed, and especially those severe internal injuries without the corresponding external damage. The core questions remain.
Was there any other recent research? I think you sent something about a simulation.
Ah, yes, the 2021 study mentioned in National Geographic. Researchers simulated a very specific scenario, a slab avalanche.
A slab avalanche. Like a block of snow breaking off.
Kind of. The idea was that the hikers might have triggered a small, delayed slab avalanche by cutting into the snow slope to pitch their tent. And the simulation suggested, yeah, it could potentially happen on that kind of slope, even if it wasn't super steep. It could create enough force to damage the tent and cause some injuries.
Okay, so that offers a possible mechanism for an avalanche. But does it explain those specific injuries? The ones found later?
Well, that's where some analyses in your sources still express doubt. The slab avalanche model might explain the initial event, the tent damage, the reason to flee, maybe even some injuries. But it doesn't necessarily satisfy everyone regarding the crushed skull, the broken ribs without external signs, on the bodies found buried deeper in the snow months later.
So it provides a piece, maybe, but not the whole puzzle for some.
Exactly. So where we stand today, based on everything you provided, the Dyatlov Pass Incident is still shrouded in uncertainty, deep uncertainty.
Despite official findings, despite modern science trying to model it.
Many people who've looked closely at the material just don't feel the full story has come out. Some think it's just a tragic, confusing mix of natural events and maybe poor decisions in a deadly environment. But others strongly suspect there's something else, something unexplained, maybe even deliberately hidden.
It really is stark, isn't it? 9 young people, full of life, head into the mountains.
Yeah.
And just never come back. What happened up there remains this, void.
Yeah. No clear killers identified, no definitive witnesses to the crucial moments, just those disturbing clues and endless questions. It's a mystery really carved into the ice and into time itself.
It leaves you constantly wondering.
Absolutely. A chilling sense of the unknown. Theories try to fill that gap, but none seems to quite capture the whole bizarre picture presented in the evidence.
Okay, so here's something to think about, pulling directly from the sources we've looked at. Why is it that after all this time, decades, multiple official investigations, scientific simulations, why does the explanation of a natural event, like an avalanche, still fail, according to so many analyses, to convincingly explain those very specific, horrific details? Especially that bizarre combination of devastating internal injuries with no matching external trauma, that persistent gap in the explanation, highlighted right there in your material. That's the real heart of it, isn't it? What force, natural or otherwise, could actually do that and drive those experienced hikers out into the killing cold? That question is still out there, unanswered.